beside, cannot doubt his tender mercy, who through life has been my guide. Heavenly peace, divinest comfort, here by faith in him to dwell. For I know whate'er befall me, Jesus doeth all things well. For I know whate'er befall me, Jesus doeth all things well.
I greet you in the name of our great God and Savior, Jesus Christ. I do count it a great privilege to come your way again with another message. I shall speak to you today on God's ways. Our text is from Psalm 145 and verse 17. Here we are told that the Lord is righteous in all his ways and holy in all his works. Keep in mind that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. Psalm 24, verse 1. And in the book of Daniel, chapter 4 and verse 35, we read, And all inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing, and he doeth according to his will in the army of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth, and none can stay his hand, or say unto him, What doest thou? We must admit that we know so little of God's ways and understand so little of his doings. Job says in Job chapter 9 and verse 10 that God doeth great things, past finding out, yea, and wonders without number. And in Job chapter 26 and verse 14 he says, Lo, these are parts of his ways, but how little a portion is heard of him. But the thunder of his power, who can understand? Having said all this about the greatness and the sovereignty of our God, this should cause us as his people to cease from our murmurings against him and be at peace, knowing that he is righteous in all his ways and holy in all his works, should put our hearts and our minds at ease, and to wait patiently on him in all that he allows and in all that he disallows. Furthermore, as his people, we are assured in Romans chapter 8, verse 28, that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. Now, all the things that come in our lives in themselves are not good. Much of it brings sadness to our hearts and regrets and tears. But we can be sure that our God is working out all things for our good, whether we know it in this life or in the hereafter. Failure to see the overruling hand of our God in all his works will cause us to charge God foolishly as Job's wife. On the other hand, to see our Father's hand in all that he allows is to have that peace of God which passeth all human understanding. Philippians chapter 4 and verse 7. In Isaiah chapter 26 and verse 3, we read, Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed upon thee, because he trusted in thee. We are told by our Savior himself in John chapter 16 and verse 33, These things have I spoken unto you, that in me you might have peace. In the world you shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. He does not tell us that we might have trouble in this world. He tells us plainly, you shall have tribulation. But he also tells us to be of good cheer. Why? Because as he assures us, with the same assurance that he gave to the Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9, he said to Paul, "My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness." Besides, we are encouraged to call upon him in the day of trouble, and he will answer us. He will give to us an answer of peace, one way or the other. In Psalm 50 and verse 15, we have an invitation to call upon him. He says, "Call upon me in the day of trouble, and I will answer." And in Psalm 34 and verse 19, we read, "Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivered him out of them all." Our troubles are opportunities to cast all our cares upon him, for he careth for us. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7. He not only cares, but he's able to do exceeding abundantly above all that we may ask or think, according to the power that worketh in us. Ephesians chapter 3, verse 20. And keep in mind that he is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Rest assured, he will never leave us nor forsake us. Samuel reminded Israel of that in 1 Samuel chapter 12 and verse 22. Now God could take his redeemed people home without having any trouble in this life, because with him all things are possible. He could take us home without sickness, without pain or grief or loss or tears. But this is not God's way. God's way and man's way are opposed to each other. God's ways are higher than our ways. Isaiah 55 verse 9. God will take us home as he took Israel to the promised land. He took Israel by way of the wilderness. And so it is with us. It is in this dry and thirsty world we see how weak and dependent we are upon our God. We see the faithfulness of our God in fulfilling all his promises. Our trials of faith in this life should not be looked upon as something strange to us. And our trials and troubles is no evidence that we are not his own. On the other hand, it is an evidence that we are his own, because whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth. Our trials of faith in this life should never be regarded as something strange. Those who seek to make merchandise of us and exploit us would have us to believe that. But God does not try the lost sinner, for there is no faith in him to try. God tried Abraham. In 1 Peter chapter 4 verse 12, Peter writes to believers who are enduring a great fight of afflictions. He said, "Beloved, think it not strange concerning the fiery trial which is to try you, as though some strange thing happened unto you. But rejoice, inasmuch as ye are partakers of Christ's suffering, that when his glory shall be revealed, ye may be glad also with exceeding joy." So don't let those exploiters out there tell you where all our trials are coming from. They're not coming from the devil. They're coming from our Father's hand for our spiritual growth, or as chastisement, which also is an evidence that you're one of his. For only whom the Lord loves, he chastens. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 6. And keep in mind, God's people are not truants. They're school children, they're in class. Here in 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 7, Peter tells us something again about the trial of our faith. He said that the trial of your faith, being much more precious than of gold which perisheth, though it be tried with fire, might be found unto the praise and honor and glory at the appearing of Christ. As his people, in all our many trials and challenges in this present time, we can fall upon his faithfulness to supply all our various needs. Our present trials should cause us to call upon Him even more and cast all our cares upon Him, for He careth for us. In the book of Psalms, Psalm 50, is an invitation. Call upon me in the day of trouble, and I will answer you. Rest assured that He will never leave us nor forsake us. So we can say with confidence, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. He's our refuge and our strength, a very present help in time of trouble. Psalm 46 verse 1. Our trials in this life are but trials of our faith. Besides, how would we know we have faith unless faith is tested? Our trials are the means of spiritual growth. As we have mentioned before, in all that we are called upon to endure, we can be confident that His grace is sufficient for us, that in all things we can be more than conquerors through Him who loved us and gave Himself for us. And let us not overlook that our disobedience are often visited by His chastening rod, but even in this, as we have said already, that also is an evidence that we are His people. As His children, let us never question His dealings with us. And may we be always submissive in saying, have thine own way, Lord. Have thine own way. And may we find grace to acknowledge Him in all our ways, and He shall direct our paths. Always thankful to you for listening, and may the Lord be pleased to bring me your way again with another message. Goodbye, and may the Lord bless you and keep you safe.
All the way my Savior leads me. Oh, the fullness of His love. Perfect rest to me is promised in my Father's house above. When my spirit clothed immortal wings its flight to realms of day, this my song through endless ages, Jesus led me all the way. This my song